Richard trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, brother?
John.
Johnny, eat up, bud.
Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
What's going on, heads? Welcome to another episode of the Street Bullies. I am John, and I am here with my good buddies, Matthew Casey. What's going on, brother?
How's it going? Good to see you guys, and great to be back from vacation. I missed you, sort of.
Yeah, sure. While you were on the beaches of Turks and Caicos.
We all have to do it once in a while.
Okay. Hook me up.
Southwest flies there. You'll love it.
And with my friend who has a personality as a Ziploc bag, Matthew Hoagland.
What's going on, boys? I don't even know what to say to that.
But by the way, Hoagie probably goes like directly from our show into like a ZocDoc video like therapy session. That guy Gove did it again.
It's fine.
This is
Pull
what
it
John
on these
said.
when we get
This
off.
is what John said this time, and I've tried really, really hard to try step C, like you mentioned, but I just couldn't click this time.
You think John is reflecting his insecurities onto me? I got it.
Right. Hey, I have a soothing voice. I have no insecurity. Just say it. All right. We want to give a quick shout out to our brother who's not here today for reasons I'm not going to get into, but Derek, thinking of your buddy. Hope you're doing all right.
Cheers to you, Derek.
Love you, kid.
All right, so let's get into it. I mean, it is currently around 8 o'clock. The NHL draft lottery has passed, and in pure Flyers fashion, the broadcast is going on and going, well, everything is going according to plan. Everybody is falling where everyone expects them to. And then the Flyers get the 5th overall pick when they should have gotten the 4th overall pick. Now, we all know it's random, but, I mean, Hoagie, do you want to kick off this conversation, my friend?
It's rigged. NHL's rigged. No, I had a feeling we were dropping to 5. I mean, I would have loved to get into the top 3 with 1 or 2, but I mean, we had a very long shot. So I mean, we're in the top 5. That's a pretty good. And I've heard with these top 5 players or top 6, top 7 players in the draft, I think we should land on a killer as long as our scouts do their jobs right.
Right. I mean, it seems to be every ranking you look at, they have them in a different place. The first 2 seem pretty, in sync with Shane Wright and somebody with the last name Cooley, which always makes me laugh. But Casey, what was worse for you? The fact that the Flyers fell to 5 or the fact that the New Jersey Devils get the freaking 2nd overall pick?
You know what? It does irk me that the Devils get it. I mean, poor Arizona. Like, guys, just they can't win. They're about to be kicked into like a bantam level rink. They just can't win there. But yeah, it annoys me that the Devils get it, and hopefully they become competitive sometime in the next decade. They're just going at it from the pure rebuild standpoint.
Right.
But I'll say to reiterate what you guys just mentioned, like if you get a top 2 pick, like that's great, especially in a draft where, to my understanding, this draft isn't exactly loaded. Next year's draft is the loaded one. But like after number 1 and number 2 in this year's draft, you're kind of like, okay, it's going to be any number of guys. And as we've learned the incredibly hard way, a top 2 pick doesn't guarantee a superstar.
Right. Well, and I think one of the things too that you have to think about is when you're stuck at that 1 and 2, it's almost based on consensus. Like you have to pick these people because like if you don't, this is who everybody said, but it's going to be number 1 all year long.
Right.
And that's obviously like the trap that the Flyers got involved in when they drafted Nolan Patrick, right? They were the consensus 1 and 2 pick. I mean, 5 gives you a little bit more freedom. You get to see where the players fall. And there should still be somebody intriguing on the board. I mean, for me, it's Matthew Savoy.
Give us the background for those of us who don't know Matthew Savoy.
Well, he
AKA
played
the Mats on the podcast.
He played last year in the WHL. His older brother Carter Savoy was a part of the University of Denver team that just won the title. I mean, really dynamic scorer. I believe he plays center. Last year during COVID times, he didn't play in the WHL. He played in the USHL and also did really well. He just seems to have shades of the high-end talent that we could use.
Right.
But also you don't really want to bank on that.
It's true. I mean, the NHL draft is tricky for me because you only have those real superstars that come in and impact immediately, like once every few years. And you may have people who come in to make a roster, but like they're buried in there. You know, the generational Crosby and Ovechkins of the world, like that obviously doesn't come along a lot. But you still have really solid players coming in, immediately in there. But the lottery is just tricky for me because it's like we'll get really pumped up about whoever we choose. Hopefully, not this fan base. We'll crap all over them immediately and second guess it. But you get pumped up, and then in like 3 years, we're like, wait, who was that again? Like, who did we end up choosing?
Right. I mean, and I think that everybody will go into this draft who has at least like done some sort of research and gone like, you could go multiple ways here, and 5 to 7 people have just as good of a chance of making the same kind of impact at the NHL level.
Right.
Which is a good and a bad thing, I guess.
Yeah. But
it's
Montreal certainly deserved the number 1 spot, but again, that jersey one was tough to swallow.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and the interesting thing too about this draft is I don't really know who's going to be NHL ready next season.
Right.
Shane Wright, I'm not really sure. They said maybe the guy with the last name Cooley, but I think he's committed to college and he'll probably go that route.
Yeah.
But I mean, before we dive into other things, I did want to just kind of hint out there that High and Wide, our brothers over at High and Wide, did have a contest for the NHL draft lottery, and Hoagie, who promised to read it just like he read the G6 free agency description, is going to give that announcement a little bit later on. You might have to listen very carefully. We promise that we'll break. But that's going to be a little bit later on because we want to shift to the real conversation, and that's coaching. Because I think all of us have said at one point or another that the first domino to fall for this team, the thing that's going to show us what direction they're going, is who they are going to hire as head coach. Well, there was already a big pool of coaches that were available, but the pool just got another shark with Lou Lamoriello just pissing off everybody in the NHL.
What an animal. What an animal.
Barry Trotz. I mean, Barry Trotz, who made this team overperform way past it ever could for 3 seasons. Had a tough year this year with the Islanders, but they also started the season on a 13-game road trip. They were struck by COVID like 46 times.
Yep.
So I don't think that even Lou Lamoriello was putting too much blame on Barry Trotz, but decided they needed a new voice.
And what do you guys read into that? I think that's there had to have been a blow up with Lamoriello and Trotz.
Right.
The Islanders, they didn't make the playoffs this year, but they were the first team out or the number 8 team in there. So they weren't as far as we were. That's for sure.
Right.
So I'm curious on what the backstory is on that.
Sure. I mean, I have my own thoughts, but because I'm kind of hosting, I guess I'll let Hoagie talk first.
Oh, thanks, Sean. What a guy. I mean, just as everybody else was, I was shocked to hear the news because Barry Trotz, he's one of the greatest head coaches in the NHL right now. He took the Islanders, 4 years ago, kind of turned them around into into a position to win, and then the past 2 seasons after that, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and were pretty darn close to going to the finals.
A loss to the Stanley Cup champion.
Right. Like, I'm just shocked by that. And as soon as I saw the name, I was like, that's top of my list for Flyers head coach, because he's reputable. He won the cup with Washington, that was another weird thing where he just like left Washington out of nowhere.
But I don't think and I think that's some people who are trying to add a little bit more to the storyline. I think that he was due an extension, and that it was commanding more money than Washington was willing to pay.
Mm-hmm. He should. He just won the Stanley Cup back then, right?
For sure. But they were looking to take one of his disciples, Todd Reardon or whatever. I mean, that didn't work very well.
Not even there anymore, right?
No.
It's gone.
But before we dive into Trotz and his fit with the Flyers, when I was kind of thinking a little bit more about Lamoriello's decision to fire Trotz, I went two different directions. Maybe he's deflecting. Maybe there's a lot of pressure under him, and he kind of wanted to put it on somewhere else, right? Because this is a guy who, although he has a great reputation as a very solid, very well-known GM, he's very stuck in his ways, right? And we all know from our own past general managers that people who are stuck in their ways tend to run into some problems.
Did you happen to see him during the lottery?
Who, Lamoriello?
Lamoriello. He looked like he was just like dead.
Well, he looks like a mummy.
Like nothing was there. Like nothing was there.
But I also do wonder if there is something with Trotz that he just doesn't have as long of a shelf life. Like with Nashville, I think he was with them forever.
It's like 10 or 15 years. Like he was there for a lifetime, basically.
Right. But why aren't you paying Barry Trotz whatever he wants after he wins you a Stanley Cup?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Craig Berube earned a monster extension after winning the Stanley Cup, and he didn't have the track record that Barry Trotz did.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go.
I look at, coaches like somebody like Laviolette, who, we've had our taste of him and some early success, but then he fades off.
Yep.
And it's weird. I don't consider Trotz that way. Like, I feel like at the very least, he should have deserved another season on the Islanders, but like he was one season removed from Washington off the Stanley Cup. And so, it's a bit of an enigma to me
I also wonder if Barzal plays a role here. I mean, Barry Trotz does not play offensively sexy hockey. I mean, your coach, doesn't play it at all anymore. That'd be fun to see. But you have a guy, Matt Barzal, who the Islanders are going to have to pay a lot of coin for, right? And I'm sure Lamoriello wants to see what he can do with a coach that's going to let him play that style. And Barry Trotz's system doesn't necessarily fit that mold.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I think that's probably a good segue, though, into like why I think Trotz actually is a really good fit for the Flyers. And
please tell us, Matthew. Please tell us.
We mentioned his stops, and the appeal to him for me is he's seen almost every situation. He's been with the startup franchise in Nashville, and yes, he had a long leash there and was able to, build them up into I wouldn't say contender at the time, but into a reputable, good Western
playoff team.
Right. And then he goes to Washington and ends up, cracking that code and getting them, I think, their first Stanley Cup ever.
Yes.
And then he goes to the Islanders and he takes a team that didn't have a lot of star power, had, I think, like one of the worst goals against average the year before, and implemented a team-based system that with the same team that the team bought into. And so the appeal, as that translates into the Flyers, is he's seen the different scenarios. He's been with the young guys. He's been with some veterans. He's been on a team that doesn't have an Ovechkin or a bona fide banner player. Yes, Barzal is great. And, that's an interesting theory that you have, John, on his involvement in this. I think if you look at the Flyers, we could all agree we do not have a franchise superstar. And I think we could have said that a year ago.
Sure.
Giroux was the face, but he is not the top echelon superstar. Not that Barzal was, but he was a darn good player.
Right.
So I personally think it would be a great fit. I think that the team, the team system that he plays versus the individual system would work incredibly well, given the fact that we don't have top end talent right now, even though we hope to upgrade that in the offseason. I think it's just a matter of, we would want him, I assume.
Right.
Why would he want to come here?
Well, don't jump the gun on the conversation here. We're gonna make what could be a very long conversation into a 10-minute conversation.
That'll be it. That'll be it, guys.
But I mean, I agree with you, Casey. Right? You have a team that doesn't have the offensive firepower, the flashiness, the game breaker, the top end talent, whatever you want to call it. Right? Mm-hmm. We are not the Islander team that he took over, but we are very similar in that, like, we need to find a system that's going to work for the bandits that we have currently.
Yeah,
the misfit toys that are
right. So I mean, Hoagie, same train of thought.
I mean, I think he would help this team have an identity, because that's what we're lacking. But I mean, his system plays well to the Couturiers, the Hayes, those type of two-way players that are defensively sound and can turn the play around. But if you go out and you get a Barry Trotz, I still want to go out and try to make a splash with getting like a Johnny Gaudreau or a Forsberg or somebody like that, and it kind of like sets me back. It's like I don't want to get an offensive firepower and then have them sit in like a defensive-minded structure. So like it's devil's advocate. I would love to coach, but like it's just like.
But
tough.
Could you afford to go down a tier and maybe not throw money at a Gaudreau or a Forsberg and get and wingers? I feel like we're so set, but like find these serviceable guys where maybe Lawton all of a sudden becomes more of that consistent too. I think that if you go with a guy like Trotz, you're more going to the team, dependent on the entire team, and not necessarily like a Gaudreau going out and getting you 100 points or what.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you need the team to buy into something and find an identity, because we haven't had that since AV came in.
Right.
1920.
But one of the things that I thought of, and Hoagie, I'll kick it to you too, is Barry Trotz. As I've said, it's boring hockey.
Yeah.
It is not exciting hockey. For a Philadelphia Flyer fan base, do we need exciting hockey or do we just need winning hockey?
Winning hockey at this point. I mean, if they're winning, it's exciting at that point, because after the past 2 seasons, no one really wants to watch this team. So, like, who cares if it's boring?
Right. Casey?
At the end of the season, boring.
Oh. I saw TV viewership was down something like 33 or 35% this year. It can't get much more boring than what we've seen.
Right.
Watching your kid get his ass kicked around the playground for 2 years is not fun. And so, look, I think it's boring to the casual hockey fan. I think if you look back, and I hate keep bringing this up, but the 2019 Flyers that actually did pretty well and then went in the bubble and did decently, it was a similar style, quite frankly.
Right.
They played it obviously better, and they had the Islanders had a better version of it. But like in my mind, that was exciting. Just watching a team try to break through and us just clogging up the neutral zone and then going back and like chipping in goals. And it's not sexy hockey, but again, as Hoagie said, if it's winning hockey,
right,
that's all that matters. I don't care.
And I do think that like the Flyers have a solid enough dedicated fan base where it's like, to them, they don't care how we're getting wins, right? It's all about putting a successful team on the ice. It's not like the fair weather fans, right? The Flyers have a very dedicated fan base that, appreciates the game of hockey and would appreciate winning under him.
Yeah. And on the flip side, appreciates when a team is not doing well and shows the front office that it's not happening. What's your take on it, John? Like, what's your Trotz What's your Trotz take?
The Trotz take.
I mean, and I think this will kind of segue into, I mean, and you kind of already said this, but this will segue into the next point. I would love Barry Trotz. I think he is a coach that this team really could use because I don't see us going out and getting high-end talent. I truly don't. There's no way I see us affording it, being able to shed the cap space. And if we do, I worry about it putting us in a hole when we really should be focusing more on acquiring younger assets. And Trotz, his style, right, his system allows us to try to still put together a winning environment without going and making those really risky moves, in my opinion.
Yeah.
However, with Barry Trotz becoming a free agent now, every team either looking for a coach or considering a change, teams in the playoffs right now have put him at the top of their list. Everybody's calling about Barry Trotz.
Right.
And there's a Winnipeg Jet team that, he's a Manitoba guy.
He's got that going for him. Nice.
Yeah.
And they also have like pieces like the Flyers, but they have better versions. They have a better goaltender. Their center depth is a little bit better. Their defense is but he's a defensive guy. So I feel like even if he were just to look at those two teams and go, which one puts me in a better position, he's picking Winnipeg.
Absolutely. So let me play devil's advocate for you, because I agree with everything you said regarding Trotz and the Islanders. But I will say, with Washington, he obviously cracked a code with that team who did have high-end talent.
Sure.
And even take Ovechkin out of the picture, because that's generational talent. But you have Oshie, you have who else? They have not Kuznetsov. I don't know. They have a solid crew of forwards over there. And so I don't think he's the one-trick pony that people want to narrow him in on.
I don't think so either. Of his
recent success of the Islanders.
No, and I completely agree with you, but I'm just looking at this Flyers team and going, we don't have it, and I'm worried about the risk it would take to go and get it. You know what I mean? Like, let's say you're clear enough cap space to go out and get Johnny Gaudreau. That's fantastic. You're not going to be able to afford anybody else, and you're locked onto this guy who just had probably, arguably, is it even arguable, the best season of his career?
Best season of his career.
Right.
It is the best, yes.
Yeah, so to me, that just spells, here we go again.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think if you get a guy like Trotz, you don't necessarily have to go and do something like that. You can kind of make little moves, tinker things, a little bit, and go, hey, we can still put together a successful hockey team here.
And then just pray our team is healthy. Yeah.
Right. But before we jump into other coaching options, because, let's be real. Again, like I said, everybody's going after Barry Trotz. Hoagie, if you're Barry Trotz, where do the Flyers fall on your intriguing job list?
I'll go with how the Flyers just ended up in the lottery. Number 5 on the list.
So who do we have in competition besides Winnipeg?
Detroit's up there. Which, why would you want to go to Detroit?
Yzerman.
Yeah, well, Yzerman can make anything shiny and pretty.
Right. Toronto, if they lose round 1. Toronto. Vancouver, if they decide not to keep Boudreau.
Right.
Yep.
There's got to be some more.
Montreal, but I'm assuming that they're going to resign or bring on what's his name? St. Louis.
Yeah.
And then whoever's in Florida, I'm assuming he's staying on as a full time.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. So look, I think there's definitely going to be suitors out there. It's just going to be, and I think with Trotz, it's probably not going to be all about money. It's going to be like, okay, does this team have enough talent to actually win, and can we make something happen? I don't know. I think Winnipeg probably has the inside track, if we're being honest,
right?
Because of the hometown nature of it. But and he's also older. He might want to just coach 3 years and retire. Who knows?
He's only 59.
Oh, he's not handling that well.
Right. Unless I misread that. I think he's only 59 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me
So
ask
he's
you
just
this.
a few years older than you, Casey.
Yeah, exactly. we're in the same demographic here. That's great. I saw him at a Steely Dan concert last summer.
Did I ever tell you
July.
I ran into Barry Trotz one
Really?
time? Yeah, I'm not even kidding. It was one Easter. We went out to lunch in Garden City, and they were having some like auto parade where it was like old fancy cars driving, and he
Like with
he
the
was
guys
just-
with the top hats on, in the little cars.
and he was just standing there, and
Really?
I just went, "Hey, coach," shook his hand, and then walked away.
I was waiting for you to say, "Yeah, have you known? I seen Barry Trotz. He's gagged in the trunk of my car right now. I'm ready to drive from Long Island down to Chuck."
He does have a bit of a troll under the bridge
Like
look.
Christmas vacation. Here you go, Clark. Here's your boss.
Right. Like if Danny DeVito took a different turn, like that's Barry Trotz.
Yep.
Let me ask you this. Hold on. The one thing that jumped into my mind from a purely negative standpoint is the AV hangover. I'm like, oh, we thought we had the right thing in AV as well, and that clearly lost its luster very quickly. And I'm just like, all right, are we just getting another quote unquote proven winner and that's just not what this team needs. Do we need a younger, fresher voice,
Well, I mean, and that's the thing, and I'm gonna tell you who my top choice is in a little bit. But I think there are so many of those like veteran names out there that it's like it's hard to even think about other people at this point. There's so much flash right now. I mean, you have the ones that it's like the Joel Quenvilles, the Mike Babcocks of the world, right? Like Claude Julien, that guy is still looking for a job.
Apparently.
But then you might even have Boudreaux, right? If he opts out of his contract in Vancouver, and I think if he opts out of his job in Vancouver and he wants to coach again, and he can't get the Leafs job because apparently that's his dream job, I think that Chuck is the one who gives him everything he wants. But even you got Paul Maurice, John Tortorella, like these are all bigger name guys where I feel like it's going to be hard for the Flyers to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely names out there. I'm just we tried the unproven guy in Hackstall. By the way, I read somewhere that Hackstall may be getting canned after year one.
Good.
Which is hilarious.
Bring him back.
So you had the unproven guy in Hackstall. Then you had the wily veteran in AV. Neither of them worked.
Right.
And so I don't know. Tortorella, I know he's the name out there. I don't want to deal with the guy. Like I just don't. I don't know if he's right. I'm reading, some stuff about the assistant for the Blues. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head.
Jim Montgomery.
There you go. Yep.
Well, spoiler alert.
That's your guy.
That's who I want. One, because he was a really good coach with Dallas, right? He hit a bump in the road, and he's out there wanting to prove something. And I really think that that's what this team needs. They need a redemption tour guy, and not like somebody who's been to a Stanley Cup before but never brought it home. Somebody who appeared to have everything going for them, really seemed to be moving in the right direction, had to step away from the game, and now is coming back. I mean, a good coach with a chip on their shoulder to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not the spotlight move like a John Tortorella, like a Boudreaux, like a Barry Trotz. We signed John Tortorella. We're never, ever going to get a minute just to fail. And this team is going to need moments to fail.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for me, like, would I love a flashy name? Obviously, it's more fun to talk about. But to me, Montgomery's the guy.
I think he sounds like the right mix. I don't know all that much about him, but
right.
I agree. He's not the rookie coach. He's not the, veteran who thinks he, is just like, all right, I'm here. Like, let's just win now. He wants to put in the effort, put in the elbow grease. I still wouldn't sleep on Tocchet. But
I keep forgetting about him.
Yeah, I do too. I think like if we were going to do that, I think it would have been done already.
Right.
In my opinion.
Right. So, I mean, I want to jump to Hoagie too because he hasn't said much in the past 10 minutes. Shocking, I know.
Okay.
But Casey, if you were to put together a short list, right? Who's sitting at the top or top two for you?
I think I'm going Trotz and Montgomery are I think you take a swing at Trotz, and if not, then you go after hard on Montgomery because you can swing at Trotz now.
Right.
And, they can't talk to Montgomery until the Blues are out, right?
I believe that's the case, yeah.
I mean, out of just pure courtesy. So
It's typically the case. Yeah.
Right. Hoagie, how about you, buddy?
For top three, I mean, I'm going with Trotz. I think that it'll be a good one. It's just a spotlight name that we all like and is shiny. I would like Tortorella. I hate to say it. I feel like he's the one that's going to bring in, the I'm going to take no shit attitude that some of these players need.
mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go off the board a little bit. I kind of like David Carl from University of Denver, Matty Carl's brother. I think, give him a shot. Go with someone off the board. That this team's not doing much next season. I think screw it.
I don't know if I want another college coach, especially somebody with a name that's tied to the Flyers.
I know.
I like the thinking, Hoagie, but I like the thinking as an assistant coach.
Yep.
Something like that. But
sure.
If they make that type of choice as a head coach, as like a David Carl, we know where this team's going. It's rebuild time.
Sure.
We're not retooling. That's the only time that I'd be okay with a coach like that.
Right.
If we're aggressively retooling, like Chuck is saying, you're going out and getting a flashier coach that's gonna get this team going in the right direction.
Yep.
Well, and see, the thing that I like about Montgomery is because you can kind of take it either direction. Like you can say we're going to be rebuilding, and it's like he's going to continue to build with this team, but he's also got a proven enough track record where it's not going to be like a Hackstall flop again.
Right.
But like for me, the grand slam is Barry Trotz, right? If you can get Barry Trotz, you can't turn away from him. No. I just don't think that's going to happen. To me, the realistic one, the home run for me is Jim Montgomery. I just think it makes a lot of sense. But if you can't get him, I think you go and you see if you can get Boudreaux, because I do think that he is going to kind of let the wheels off this team. He's just going to just score, just go score. But I also see a guy who just loves the game. He loves coaching. I mean, even when he was in broadcasting, all he ever talked about was coaching. And maybe he's what it takes to change the culture.
Now, here's a question. Do any of these guys have Minnesota ties? Because then that automatically
that's a lot, right?
Does he?
Boudreaux. Is there any alliteration? Bruce Boudreaux. Bruce Boudreaux, Minnesota.
You just spoke it into existence.
Lock it up. It's done.
It's on the ticker here, but do you think there's any shot that we go after some quote unquote damaged goods in Quenneville or Babcock?
No.
I don't either. Given the current PR snafus we're having, no way.
I can see Babcock just flirt with it, but Quenneville absolutely not. I mean, Babcock would be. He's that guy that's not going to take your shit in the locker room. You know what I'm saying? Like, but he's that guy that makes a young player write a list of who sucks the worst.
I think that style has just come and pass in the league. Right. I don't think that somebody like Babcock can connect with young players, and we're going to have a lot of young players.
He's the one that's been on like the broadcast is like, I can't stand this type of hockey. Like the Trevor Zegras is doing the Michigans behind the like. It's the way the game's going. You gotta accept it.
Right.
Man.
Well, Tortorella too has been vocal about that too. Right. Not liking the Michigan or whatever.
Maybe it was Tortorella. They both are kind of like hand in hand.
Yeah, they're old school.
Yeah, they're old school. They're just giant dicks, man. They really are.
It's true, and honestly, Babcock on TV is horrible. Like that guy has the personality of an eggshell. It's
Just picture him. Doesn't he sound like somebody who say potato funny? Potato. Just potato.
His
Oh, eat the
face looks like
potato.
one of those microwave sweet potatoes after
Right.
it's done. Get out of here. I
Brilliant
want
hockey
nothing
mind.
to do with either of those guys.
No.
Yeah.
No. And again, you could say Jim Montgomery's damaged goods.
But
Check the
he
box.
at least has been doing the redemption aspect. of it.
Sure. Right. I mean, I was just saying, like, if you're looking for damaged goods, you could
Come
He's
on
got
down to
two
Broad Street.
but it kind of does lead to the next thing that I want to talk about, because when Chuck Fletcher had his exit press conference, or whatever you want to call it, end of the season press conference, and he announced that Mike Yeo would not be head coach, he, and I'm paraphrasing here, said, tomorrow we're going to sit down and create a list of candidates, what we're looking for in a candidate, and it rubbed some people the wrong way. Some people were like, wait a minute, AV's been out of a job since, what was it, December? And we're now just thinking about it. And Casey, I know you had some feelings about this. So
yeah, I read people getting really bent out of shape. Like, how do they not know? They know. They didn't all of a sudden wake up last Tuesday and was like, oh, no, what we got to do is fill a head coaching job. I look at it in two ways. Number one, in the Montgomery situation, and I'm sure there's others that we're not even thinking about.
Sure.
There's still teams in the playoffs that may have assistant coaches, or coaches on aspiring contracts or something that like we may have interest in.
Right.
And again, I don't know how it works. I'm assuming we can't talk to them directly while they're still playing, but I'm assuming these coaches have agents that it's like, hey, is there, are they looking to go to the next level, or do they want to be an assistant? So that's number one. You got to see what the whole field is. And I think if we clearly did not play this well when AV was let go. We didn't have a succession plan. It was thrown together. It was haphazard. The other thing that I'll say is, in this coach, in Chuck's defense, there's a lot of things to rip Chuck about, but he, in my mind, at least is a pretty straight shooter, stand-up guy. And with the Flyers, as well as any single business, you don't say, yeah, we have a short list of guys that we've been looking at for the last 9 months, and basically tell Mike Yeo, like, even more so, like, yeah, get the hell out of there. He knew he had no shot of doing it, but out of respect and just the human side of the business, you don't be like, yeah, you really had no shot. And so that's where I get annoyed. Like, of course they know, have an idea who they're looking for. But a week ago, if they had been like, all right, John Tortorella's our guy. Oh, crap. Barry Trotz said he's interested.
Right.
Oh, crap. So it's tough to see. I get it. But like, sometimes patience is a virtue here, and we are going to see movement. Like, it's got to be done before the draft, which is what, July, mid-July?
Well, end of June.
End of June?
Unless, I believe so.
So
I don't know. The way that the calendar has been messed up because of COVID, I can never guess anymore.
Yeah, everything's a little screwed up.
But and I do want to.
That's my POV. That's my point on it.
Well, and here's the thing: I do want to talk about the urgency, but there is one theory you're forgetting, Casey. Where if he is the used car salesman that inherited the business because of his dad, this scenario could have went down. His wife is doing laundry. She's like, oh, there's crinkling in these jeans that he's got. He clearly hasn't worn these jeans in a while. She pulls out, Chuck, there's a list of things here you needed to do. And oh, all right, do the laundry. Go. Oh yeah, hire a new coach. Always the possibility.
And then he's like, and then he turns to Danny Briere. He's like, Danny, why didn't you remind me of this? You had one job to do.
But by the way, we're gonna call you Banny Briere and pretend that you're from Minnesota, okay? So, Hoagie, I do want to shift it to you though. And what is the level of urgency that the Flyers need to lock down their coach?
I mean, it's kind of important, like that. I think that
Thank you.
Need someone back there.
I forgot the value you bring to this show.
He's not the best color commentary guy in the league.
But no, it's number one on your list. You're going after it. to Casey's point, there might be guys that are poaching still that they can't, legally or whatever talk to that they want. And I mean, we kind of did this 3 years ago with AV. Chuck had his press conference. He said what he had to say, and then like a week or two later, AV's hired. So like, you never know what they have. They have that list. They know who they want. They know who they're going to try to go after. But like, I think within the next couple of weeks, we're going to see somebody announce as head coach. That's just
Casey,
my opinion.
what say you?
I say by Memorial Day, we'll know.
And I think that if we don't know, it's telling. I think that, and I don't mean it in a negative way. I think that means they have their eyes set on someone who's still in the playoffs.
I could spin that in a negative way.
I'm definitely spinning that.
Oh,
in a negative way.
no, for sure.
No, I think if they don't have anybody by then, we don't know what we want, and we're going for somebody off the board that a Dave Hackstall type, and it's rebuild mode.
So, but what I'm saying is obviously you can take it negatively, but what I'm saying is, what if it is Montgomery? What if Montgomery's still in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
To me, like we don't have the guy with all of these big names out here, if we don't have the guy, and it's not a case of everybody turning us down, then to me, that's why, because it's somebody who's still in the dance, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, not to bring this back to, a non-Flyers thing, but, I'm a huge University of Miami football fan, and John, I know you're a Notre Dame fan, and you guys just, hired a new coach as well, but we were going after Mario Cristobal, who was at Oregon, but we couldn't talk to him, or we couldn't, there was contact behind the scenes, but he was in the Pac-12 championship. And so fans were going ballistic, but they had their eyes set and it ended up working out. So these things do happen, and it's not cold calling. It's a small fraternity in the hockey space. And I think inherently, I think coaches want to have their assistant coaches get promoted and do well and understand that, there's career trajectory. So
I do think it is risky though, waiting for an assistant to, finish their season in the playoffs, because it's like, say they're set on Jim Montgomery, and I'm just, because he makes sense. He's an assistant for St. Louis. He decides he doesn't want the job. And in the meantime, Barry Trotz got hired. John Tortorella was,
Dominoes are falling.
Right. And so I almost want St. Louis to lose just for that reason. So
what's the score in that series now?
I think it's 2-2, just like most of them.
Every single series in the 2-2 they play tonight.
Well, I mean, how about the Rangers having a tough time? I mean,
two
it's great to
burgers,
see, but
right, Shesterkin's having a rough go in net.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hoagie, for that. Really appreciate it. So I mean, do we have anything else to say about coaching? I feel like we touched it all.
I think we have.
We touched it all. We tickled it all.
Oh boy.
Well, Hoagie, I think before we dive into our next topic, do you want to have your moment in the sun, my friend? And now he's like, just so you know, it was the only name that he could read.
No,
so,
3.
So if you saw, we were doing the giveaway on High and Wide with Street Bullies, and 6 people got it right.
Sound excited, please.
I'm going to do the wheel of names here. Tap to spin. There's going to be some confetti going. Who we got? Already, here comes the confetti. Ramos Report. Oh boy. Ramos Report is the winner of the High and Wide T-shirt.
All right. Well, congrats.
Did
a news outlet just win the giveaway?
And
quite possible.
Ramos.
Sorry, I suck.
Well, my friend Double R, congratulations. You won a shirt.
He's getting a High and Wide T-shirt.
You won a High and Wide T-shirt for listening to the Street Bullies podcast. Congratulations. How does he retrieve such a thing?
You could either DM the Street Bullies or the High and Wide podcast.
DM High and Wide.
DM High and Wide.
We'll get you
taken care of.
Them, so. We don't want to be the middleman here.
Hey,
you DM us, we're We're asking them.
Not to discount. I mean, Jim at High and Wide sent me a couple High and Wide shirts. They're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
shirts. I do like them.
they're really nice.
Yeah, they make my biceps look more bicep-y than they are.
they make
Not
my
surprised
gut
there.
feel not as gutty.
All right. So anyway, yep. Congratulations to the Ramos report. Proud of you. So anyway, on to the next bit of spicy news.
Ooh.
The Philadelphia Flyers dipped into Russia and signed Ivan Fedotov to a 1-year entry-level contract.
1 year ELC, 1.1 mil.
Thank you for the numbers, Hoagie. Just because I know he has the most thoughts about this, I'm going to start with Matt Casey.
This guy's not getting out of Russia. Are we insane? I don't know. I'd wish we'd done it for 1.03 mil, so we can cover off on that little that little bonus mishap that we had with the salary cap. But
with Joel Farabee,
I don't know the first thing about Ivan Fedotov. But I will say it sounds like from the few things that I have read that he is legit. He has done a pretty good job over there. I don't think that we want to keep Jesus, what was his name? I already forgot his name.
Sandstrom?
Martin Jones.
Martin Jones. Yeah, I forgot about him already.
Mm-hmm.
I think he played admirably, but if we can start pulling in guys and who within the system and instead of paying wily veterans, then let's do it. So
right. So Hoagie, for you if you're Chuck Fletcher, are you going in hoping that Fedotov is your backup next year?
I would bank on it, hoping he comes. Which, I mean, he signed the contract. He has to come at this point, right?
I don't know. Ask Putin.
Okay. I'll call him up after the pod. I'll let you know how it goes.
Doesn't shock me you have his cell phone number. Commie bastard.
I'm not a commie bastard.
Okay, anyway.
No, I think you're trying to bank on him being your backup, trying to keep it cheap backup, not paying $2 million plus for a Martin Jones or a Brian Elliott type. And seeing what you have in your farm system at this point. So, I mean, I'm excited. I think it might be a change because it's a little different in speed and play.
The ice size is different. And also, and I think I heard this from the Stick to Hockey podcast, the other one that Jason Martinez does. And he was saying that traffic in front really isn't a thing in the European game. Yeah, which could be problematic.
We're going to have the next Ron Hextall.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. They can stand in front of me?
They can touch
What the
me?
hell is this?
Gentlemen, what's in front of me?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I mean, listen, I hope he pans out as a backup. That'd be really nice if you don't have to go out and get another veteran. You can count on him for the cheap. But I worry about Carter Hart, who can't seem to stay healthy for a full season. And then it's like, okay, well, we've got Fedotov, and then with Sandstrom, Urson, Ustimenko, like, danger, Will Robinson. Like, that doesn't really sound like a recipe for success in my book.
I mean, I think you're right. I think it's Hart. A year ago we had concerns about him. I think there's less concerns this year, but I don't know, man. But
he's always banged up at some point in the year.
Right.
And I'm confident that if we were in any sort of hunt, he would have played through whatever he played through and just missed a couple games. We can be realistic about that. But I think not to flip this from Fedotov to Carter Hart, but this is the make or break year for him. And in my opinion, and I'm not convinced that he is the only untouchable. I'm not saying we're going to trade him, but I think if the right deal's on the table, maybe we do try to, the time is right to go. Because I'm still not convinced he's the guy.
I mean, and to me, right, there is a world where if Fedotov shows you, hey, you know what? Actually, I can replicate what I've done in the KHL in the NHL, which I'm not convinced that will happen. But I'm just saying there is a world where that happens, where like Carter Hart has not done anything to this point where it's like, okay, well, we can let this guy walk, and you know, maybe we're singing a different tune next season. I hope we're singing a different tune next season.
We're singing a lot of different tunes next season.
Well, yeah.
Dude. The other thing, you know what's interesting though is, you know, Hart's not like the biggest goalie. He's obviously pretty agile. This guy's a monster.
Right. He's also like 40.
He's 6'7". Holy
He's
crap.
40.
He's 25. He's
25. Right. Which is good though, because he, you know, what they say about goalies, right? Carter Hart was young coming in.
Yep.
You know, this is somebody who brings experience.
Ooh,
and it's professional hockey. You know, I mean, the KHL
discussion.
is not the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you mumbling over there?
I'm thinking of future pods. That's all. We're good.
Oh, good. Now he's thinking out loud. We can't get him to produce words during the show that relate to what we're talking about.
What would be good is a Celeste pizza. That'd be really good.
Would be.
All right, before we get going, there is hockey being played. The playoffs are, you know, round one is well underway. Mostly game fives. We've had one sweep. One of the things that I've learned watching these games, mostly competitive series, I mean, most of them are 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
The Flyers are nowhere near a playoff team.
Nope.
Holy moly.
Yep.
I mean, aside from Colorado doing Colorado things, like every team has been competitive.
Yeah, and I think you ratchet it up in the playoffs one way or the other.
Sure.
And I think, you know, good teams definitely find another gear. But, you know, looking at the team that came off the ice 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it's been at this point, versus watching any of these series, you're like, oh, that's far away. But I understand that we were playing essentially a JV lineup at that point. We haven't seen anything close to a decent Flyers hockey team since the first 2 weeks of the season, in my opinion. So
the first 10 games.
Oh, we were great. We were on our way.
And we were talking about what we were going to do with the show for the rest of the season in November. But Hoagie, what series has kind of stuck out to you the most? Have you enjoyed watching the most?
Oh, every single one of them, to be honest. But no, I'm not. I won't
What
do
an
that.
answer, Hoagie. Everything's been fine.
I'll be honest. I really enjoyed the Toronto Tampa Bay series. It's physical. There's goals upon goals upon goals. It's just, it's nasty. Like, they had a full line brawl. Like, after whistles, they went to commercial break, and they're still going at it. It's just like, it's wild. I love playoff hockey, but that series in particular has just been out of this world.
Right. Casey, how about you?
You know, I'm a little bit. I haven't watched any of the West Coast games just from a time difference standpoint.
Sure.
But, you know, I agree that Toronto, Tampa Bay, I think it was even game one. That was just, it was just nasty. And I was like, oh, man, what is going on? But I've been paying quite a bit of attention to the Pittsburgh Rangers series because I want both of them to lose miserably.
Right. It's the only one I really can't watch, to be honest with you.
You know, that first game, you know, I went to bed at the end of regulation. I got up to go to work the next morning. The game was still going on, for God's sakes. You know, the 3 overtimes. But that game's been really interesting to me just because of the proximity and rivalry we had with both of them. I just don't know who I suppose I want the Rangers to lose more, and they're down 3-1 just because John and I are both in the New York vicinity, and I can't handle Rangers fans, those freaking Muppets. Yeah, no. I don't really know any Penguins fans, so they don't bug me as much. I don't like Pittsburgh, though. So
Right. You know, for me, I like a series where it's like a hold on a second there, buddy. You thought this was going to be an easy series, and we've had a few of those. I mean, Calgary has struggled, you know, to really get the upper hand. Then you've got LA, who's holding their own against Edmonton.
That's a shocker, actually.
And what about Boston?
Yeah.
Like, this
What about Boston?
I mean, was it the first 2 games? I was like, oh, this is going to be short order.
Yeah.
but this is a team that's like, you want to talk about identity, like they are not as talented on paper as most teams in the playoffs.
No, they're a one-line team,
but they consistently put together a winning reputation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the identity I want. When you get where do you get one of those?
It's Claude Julien. There you go.
Oh, there we are.
I will say the
gonna
Hurricanes
wheel 'em
are only
in.
up 3-0 on them in the second. So,
They
All
are,
right.
yep.
Right.
I
mean,
sorry, go ahead, John.
no, I'm just saying, like, I didn't expect that series to be competitive after the
Mhm.
first two games.
Yeah.
Boston is surprising me.
I was also expecting, probably wrongfully so, I was expecting the Panthers to roll the Capitals.
I love that they're not.
Not a sweep, but like I was expecting them to like light them up a little bit. And
Give it to them. That's been a really good series.
Yep.
Right. Oh,
So,
I would love it.
Hoagie's right. They all have been good. I guess.
Oh, that's really good.
I've really enjoyed watching all of them.
To be honest, I haven't really watched Minnesota St. Louis. It's just like I know it's supposed to be like a really good series and that we were like excited to
Right.
watch it, but it's just not a series that I've tuned into because like the other games have been close games to really watch.
One, it's like by the time those games are on the 7:30 games are like coming to an end, and they've been intriguing in the end, you know. So
Yeah.
it's like, and then after one game, I'm like, all right, I gotta go to bed.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the crazy idiot that stays up till 11:30, 12 o'clock and wakes myself up at 1.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that sounds stupid.
Yeah.
Speaking of
last night.
stupid, Hoagie, do you want to
Yeah, you
share
ready?
your dad joke?
Yeah, you ready for this one?
Nope. Does that mean we
What-
get to skip over it?
Nope. What do you call a cheap circumcision?
Snip something.
A ripoff.
I flinched a little bit when you said that. I didn't like it.
I saw
Yeah.
it.
Well, that one cut deep. Mm-mm.
Heyo.
Hey-o. All right. Well, this has been a good one. I feel like we really were able to dive into the coaching conversation, and now we've got to figure out what to talk about until a coach gets hired. But were you gonna say something, Casey?
I think the Flyers in the offseason a hell of a lot more exciting than the Flyers during the season. So.
For sure. But I do think we have a few weeks of just waiting.
Right.
And waiting. But anyway, Casey, do you feel like telling people where they can find you on Twitter?
Hey, I'm over at Pod Street Casey, and come to me for all your Scott Lawton needs and Twitter news.
Did you like my GIF?
I didn't even see it, Hoagie. I think I blocked you.
Nobody looks at what you do, Hoagie. Speaking of that Twitter account, Hoagie, where can they find you, my friend?
You can
Gosh,
find me
on
on the Twitter.
the Twitter app thing.
Moron. And you can find our buddy Derek over at Pod Street Derek. No, he can't. Pod Street Bob. You can find the podcast Twitter account. I'm not sure if anybody's doing anything on it, but Pod St Bullies. And you can find this podcast on all your various podcast listening receptacles, including but not limited to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, Pocket Casts. Gotcha,
There you go.
Casey.
There you go.
iHeartRadio. Hoagie, got you, buddy.
Yeah, man. Still living in 2010.
YouTube, and all your other various things you can Google.
And our affiliates?
Oh, yeah. Somebody else want to say that? I've been talking a lot
Our
here.
affiliates are High and Wide. I think we've given them plenty of love. And 5 Minute Major. And what else you got, Hoagie? Any other affiliates?
National Geographic.
And
And
Ricardo Report or whatever that was.
Oh, boy.
Great. Let's offend the guy who just won the T-shirt. We are happy for you, Ramon.
Ramon. Damn it.
I
Boy.
don't think it was Ramon either. Anyway, before we get ourselves in trouble, it's been real, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye now.
Bye now.